Okay, sorry for the delay. I'm feeling kind of burdened by technology. I know. I mentioned that already. Yeah, I'm going to focus on the Etruscans today because we had all of that catching up to do. So we're going to talk about the Etruscans and then we'll just start Rome tomorrow. And I will show them again tomorrow. So sorry, I know it didn't work very nicely with our key works. Okay. Okay, so today we're going to start talking about the Etruscans. We're moving our area of discussion from the Greek islands to what is currently the country of Italy. We're going to talk about the Etruscans, who were the very early pre-Roman civilization. The Etruscans were called the Tyrrhenians by the Greeks, and they were the people that lived in the area between the Arno and the Tiber rivers of central Italy, known as Tuscany today. And this is the area that we're seeing here where this civilization prospered. They were centered for the most part in the Florence region of Tuscany. And they are defined today as a mystery people of antiquity. And this is due to the fact that their literature was deliberately destroyed by the Romans in the first century, who are basically going to conquer the Etruscans. The actual origins of these people remain a mystery as well. We're not exactly sure where they came from. Historians differ in their opinion of who they are. It is most likely that they are a mix between indigenous people and immigrant population. Just in 2007, there was a whole DNA analysis done on the cattle of this region, and it revealed that they carried a DNA marker that was indigenous to the Middle East, making scientists and historians believe that the Etruscans were a mix between indigenous and a Middle Eastern group of people that moved and then lived and prospered in the region. It is believed that these Near Easterners traveled there and migrated between 6400 BCE and 1600 BCE, so during the Neolithic Age or the Bronze Age. We do know that they are very highly skilled sea people. They were great metallurgists. They had extraordinary, extensive mines, extracting iron ore and various metals from the ground, which they then crafted and then traded widely, particularly with the Greeks, who were very influential on these people. They were a society dominated by warrior superiority. They are going to be run by individual kings, never are going to manifest themselves into one kind of cohesive whole, but organize themselves as independent kingdoms. Here is an example of an Etruscan work of art, a fibula with orientalizing lions that dates about 650 BCE. This was found at one of the many tomb sites at the necropolis of Savartiri. It is a gold dress pin, which gives evidence on the kind of emphasis on display of the Etruscans. They loved spectacular luxury objects, and many of these type of things were found in the tombs there. This was a golden fibula or a clasp that would connect at the shoulder. As you can see, we see 5 lions on the middle section here. This is hammered repoussé technique, where the object is hammered from the back and details are added to the front. Of course, the lion being an animal associated with Middle East, evidence of the trading and the influence of Near Eastern culture on this group of people. We can also see the use of granulation, where they basically fuse tiny balls of metal or granules to the metal surfaces. This speaks to the craftsmanship of the Etruscans, something that they are known for. They actually even found dental bridges. You know, it's advanced. They tuned it not only to jewelry, but on practical functional objects like dental work as well. In fact, they're extraordinarily innovative. So we also see this interest on display amongst the elite classes of this civilization. Much of what we have from the Etruscans is taken from the necropolis. Here is an aerial view of the tombs of Severtiri. This was a tomb site that was used between the 7th and 2nd century BCE. As we can see, the Etruscan cemetery took the form of mounds or tumuli, burial mounds. Where we can see these forms above ground, unlike the tholos, right, which we know and love from the Aegean region. These were solid earth and mounds over underground tomb chambers. If we look in the interior of these tombs, we can see these extraordinary rooms cut out of the rock underground. That obviously this is a culture that had an elaborate understanding of the afterlife, much more in keeping than, let's say, the Egyptians, than anything we've seen so far. Inside of these tomb chambers, which were extraordinarily spacious, in many cases were crafted better than the homes found and associated with these people, complete with painted frescoes that were found throughout, as well as furniture and other objects that should have been found and associated with a domestic context, like stools and mirrors and drinking cups and jewelry, as we've already seen, pictures. It is believed that multiple generations of a very wealthy family would place their dead in these sites. We see niches here for the placement of dead, also areas in which one could sit, creating a place in which people could actually worship the dead, possibly. Somehow the stuff that was found in these sites had something to do with the afterlife, whether it be that it was a journey like we know the Egyptians believe or not. These were certainly dwelling places for the dead, and this was an important component of Etruscan culture. Here on the right, I'm showing you perhaps the most famous of the tombs. This is the tomb of the leopards. This is found in Tarquinia, another one of the necropoli found there. Here is some more examples of these paintings found, in which we see a banquet where people have gathered and are lounging a la symposia style, reclining on long beds. Obviously, this is a cultural habit that is borrowed from the Greeks, who similarly took this position when banqueting. And in fact, there was great communication between these cultures. Notoriously, the Greeks were shocked to the core as to the behavior of the women in Etruscan culture. Herodotus, the 5th century Athenian historian, noting notoriously that Etruscan women were expert drinkers and very good looking. They were known for their blonde hair, perhaps a dyeing process that they used. The Greek historian Theopompus was more scandalous in saying that the Etruscans had an established custom of sharing wives, but that they were very beautiful and the women exercised often. You'll recall that the women were cloistered in the home, and here Etruscan women were very much part of society. The Etruscans have had a enthusiastic group of supporters and people, in, historical figures who have been interested in them. Perhaps most famously was the Romantic poet D.H. Lawrence, who went to Tarquinia throughout Italy and studied the Etruscans when he was fighting the Greek-Turkish War. And he wrote a ekphrasis, or a long explanation and description of the Tomb of the Leopards, which I really love, and I want to read it to you. It goes on a little bit long, so I'll read till we get squirming in our chairs. And kind of describes this, because these kind of grainy photos, I think, don't do the spirit of the room justice. So this is D.H. Lawrence. The Tomb of the Leopards is charming. Cozy little room, and the paintings on the walls have not been so very much damaged. The paintings are fresh and alive. The ochre reds and blacks and blues and blue-greens are curiously alive and harmonious on the creamy yellow walls. Most of the tomb walls have had a thin coat of stucco, but it is of the same paste as the living rock, which is fine and yellow and weathers to a lovely creamy gold, a beautiful color for a background. The dancers on the right wall move with strange, powerful alertness. The men are dressed only in the loose, colored scarf or in the gay, handsome chiames draped as a mantle. The sabulu player plays the double flute the Etruscans love so much, touching the stops with big, exaggerated hands. The man behind him touches the seven-stringed lyre, and the man in front turns around and signals with his left hand, holding a big wine bowl in his right. And so they move on their long sandaled feet past the little buried olive trees, swiftly going with their limbs full of life to the tips. The sense of vigorous, strong-bodied liveliness is characteristic of the Etruscans, and it is somehow beyond art. You cannot think of art, but only of life itself, for this was the very life of the Etruscans, dancing in their colored wraps and massive yet exuberant naked limbs ready from the air and sea light, dancing and fluting along through the olive trees out in the fresh day. The end wall has a splendid banqueting scene. The figures recline upon a checkered or tartan couch cover on the banqueting couch, and there they are here, we see them. Full of life like the dancers, but they are strong. They keep their life so beautifully and richly inside themselves. They are not loose, and they don't lose themselves in their wild movements. They lie in pairs, man and woman, reclining equally on the couch, curiously friendly. The two end women are called herate, or courtesans, chiefly because they have yellow hair, which seems to have been a favorite feature of the women of pleasure. The men are dark and ruddy and naked to the waist, and the women sketched in their creamy rock, are fair and wear thin gowns with rich mantles round their hips. They have a certain free, bold look, and perhaps really are courtesans. The man at the end is holding up between thumb and forefinger an egg, showing it to the yellow-haired woman who reclines next to him. She who is putting out her left hand as if to touch his breast, he in his right hand holds a large wine dish for the revelers. And on it goes, describing the scene that this might be the man who has died, and this might be a symbol of renewal and of life, second life. But you get a sense of the kind of lightness and celebratory quality of Etruscan art. They were deeply influenced by the archaic Greek style, never really embracing the classical. They are going to forego anatomical correctness in a desire to kind of capture a sense of kind of liveliness and mood over that of clear anatomy. The actual room itself is called the Tomb of the Leopards because we see these two leopards here on either side between the olive leaf. They were, I think, a kind of a more relaxed, freewheeling society. I liken them more to the Aegean world, kind of lighter, less militaristic. Here is their famous sarcophagus with reclining couple from Severteri, also found in the tomb. And here we get a sense of the animated quality of these people. We see, unlike the Greeks, there is no interest here on proportion and balance. In fact, if we look at the body, we can see all of the emphasis here is on the upper half of the body. The legs and feet look more like fins, right, like a mermaid's tail than anything else, as the point of interest and articulation is on the gesturing and the communication of this couple, as if they have gesticulating hands or in part of an explanation, engaging in conversation with someone else. Also, of course, which is different than what we see in the Greek world, is a couple together, the male figure kind of protectively having his arm around the female, looking on as she is engaging in conversation. The object itself is a sarcophagus. This is an object, of course, meant to house the remains of the deceased. Interestingly, in the Etruscan world, cremation was the norm, and so all that would be found inside of this sarcophagus would have been the ashes. There was no elaborate mummification process like we see in the the Egyptian world. Of course, Greeks did not have sarcophagi like this. They buried their dead in simple graves. So we have kind of a return to funerary art in the Etruscan world. Yeah.
Was this intended for two people, considering it has two people on it, or was this the grave of one?
It's my understanding that this would have two, but interestingly, the Etruscan tombs were multiple, maybe even more. Yeah, and this was, of course, the elite class, right? These were those that would have these elaborate statuary. This is life-size. It's made of terracotta, which was the favored medium for the Etruscans. Terracotta is hard-baked clay. It was used both for sculpture and as a building material. It would be glazed and then painted. We get you really get a kind of a sense of the vitality of this culture in this work. I want to look a little bit at the architecture of the Etruscan people. None of it remains. These people built in wood. And so the structures did not last through time like the Greek marble temples. This is a model of a temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, which is found at the Capitoline Hill in Rome, dating to the 6th century. It was built by Tarquinius Precius, who became the first Etruscan king to rule Rome. Rome at the time was a backwater area, not the empire that it will become. It was very modest. It will be ruled by a succession of Etruscans until they are overthrown by the Romans. Here we can see, and this is the model was kind of built through these coin images of the Etruscan temple. You can see here clear differences with the Greek temple, obvious similarities as well. Why don't you tell me, what do you see here? Similar or different? Yeah, Grace. Okay, interesting, right. The lack of the frieze, you mean around the side? I mean, it's kind of a hard to read thing, but interesting, right? Look at the sculpture, right? The sculpture is found on the roof of the temple, not in the pediment. What else? Yeah, Cole. That's right. That's right. Notice that the columns do extend, right? So it's not a full peripteral, right, because the columns go all the way around. But you're right, there is a porch or a portico that extends off the front, the columns going down the sides, and the cella walls, right, extend. And it's a much bigger, and we see now 3 chambers, 3 cellas in the center of the temple. One room devoted to Zeus, one to Hera, one to Minerva. So they basically incorporate the Greek gods in their own pantheon. They use basically the same gods as the Greeks. While they still have post and lintel architecture, as Cole noted, there is now a clear facade or front area. They don't have that sculptural understanding of sculpture where it needs to be seen similarly from all sides. There's a clear front door, if you will. You extend upward through a small staircase here, and then you are on the front platform of the portico. The columns themselves are much thinner, lighter, right? A lot more space in between them. This is, of course, because this is not made of stone. It's of lighter material, okay? It's of interesting to note because, of course, this is going to be very influential on the Romans to come, okay? Which we'll talk about tomorrow. They do use the Doric style. They really have an affinity with kind of the early Greek kind of classical world. And we see that evidenced here in the perhaps most famous sculpture. This is called the Apollo of Veii. This was part of a larger program found at the temple at Veii, where it depicted Heracles and engaging in one of his labors, and the god Apollo, he would be Apollo in the Greek world, is engaged in taking the Cernian hind from, attempting to take it away from Heracles. Here we see the kind of a sense of kind of the dynamic animation of the Etruscan sculpture. It's made of terracotta. We can see their influence of the archaic Greek, right, work. I'm going to compare it here to a contemporary core from the Acropolis in Athens from the archaic period. We see, right, the use of the archaic smile. But rather than that self-contained Kouros, we see this man more dynamic, stretching further outward, a sense of kind of movement here, this kind of articulated drapery through his chest. This is going to maintain interesting to the Etruscans while the Greeks, as we know, are going to move on towards the adoption of contrapposto and classical dimensions. This style will remain at the heart of the Etruscan aesthetic. Getting a sense more of personality, if you will, rather than that fascination with, the body and the workings of the body. We have here, his kind of dynamic, wide stance and kind of animated sensibility here. Also, not only we get this kind of articulation and repetitive pattern through the drapery, it's interestingly also repeated in his legs, in the sinews of the muscles of his legs, which is more of a pattern effect than really understanding of the anatomical structure of the leg. I've run out of time. So basically we'll pick up with the Etruscans next time, and then we're right into Rome tomorrow.